Hello and welcome to Make It Happen with Will Polston. I'm Will Polston. This is episode number 113, and in this episode I'm joined by Jamie Alderton. Jamie Alderton is a coach, author and Guinness World Record holder. He's written 2 best-selling books on mindset, productivity and habits and helps fitness professionals build successful online businesses. In this episode we're talking about brain, body and business. Jamie, welcome to the show.
Will, thanks for having me.
Absolute pleasure. So I have had the pleasure of witnessing you from afar for quite some years now. We've got a number of mutual friends. So I just want to hat tip to Fish for setting this up and putting this together. And really looking forward to having the conversation. So you have had quite an impact on thousands of people's lives in terms of helping them with their body, their brain, their business, and have done for people all over the world now. But one of the things that I would love to know before we get stuck into some of the incredible things that you've done using the mindset and the muscle that you have is, how did it all come about? You know, because I can't imagine that you decided, when I grow up, this is what I want to be, one of the sort of best trainers of personal trainers and fitness businesses in the world, really. But how did it all come about?
I think like a lot of people that I speak to, it comes from a period of being lost. And I think if I kind of rewind and think all the way back to anything where I've had to, suddenly make a decision which is going to change my life, it's always been that I don't know where I'm going. I left college at 17. And I think it was a 2-year college certification. And I'd only done a year because I always say they had this thing in, Weatherspoons, right? They had this thing called Sorry Ronnie. Basically what Sorry Ronnie was burger, chips and a pint for less than the price of an extra value meal at McDonald's. Hence why they call it Sorry Ronnie. And like my lunch breaks at college, I used to go and have a Sorry Ronnie and then chase up another 3 pints. So of the 2 years I spent at college, I only actually got the first certification. And I finished college and didn't know where on earth I wanted to go. There's no way I was going to go to university. I couldn't even pay attention in college, let alone university. So I was lost. And I made a decision there and then, because I was just drinking a lot, like your typical teenager, getting into trouble. And I was just like, look, I don't know, there's kind of 2 paths here: join the army or probably go to prison in the next 6 months. And I obviously decided to join the army. Once again, best decision that ever happened. Joined the army at 17. Did 6.5 years in the British Army. Left at a very difficult time where I left at Christmas time in 2009. Once again, trying to find a job. Didn't know what I wanted to do. Kind of lost my identity a bit because it's very hard to go, into Civvy Street because your identity is very strong as a soldier. Ended up working in IT for a year. And once again, it was easy, but I just felt lost. And when I left the army, I discovered natural bodybuilding. And I got into that because it gave me the discipline that I got from the army, where it was telling me to get up, to eat my meals, prep my food, do my workouts and work towards an endpoint goal, which is very similar to the army. I excelled in that a lot because it was very much what I was used to from the age of 17. And I became British and European natural bodybuilding champion. And, if I switch from kind of that to my career, I was working abroad. I had quite a couple of interesting jobs. 2012, I believe. Was it 2012? No, that was, let's rewind, 2011. I was working for the US government in Baghdad, Iraq, doing psychological operations. And I did that for 2 years and I got made redundant. Now, I hadn't planned to be made redundant, but once again, lost. I had this cushy job, paid well, traveling around the world, and suddenly I had nothing. And I was kind of back to that decision of the army or prison, to be honest. It's not that I'm a bit wiser and a bit older with regards to, the extremes, but I was just thinking, what on earth am I going to do? I've got about 800 quid in the bank. I just got a mortgage with my wife on a new house, luckily just before I got made redundant. But if I don't figure this shit out, I'm gonna have to go on the dole or something, because I was really that desperate. And I think the first thing that I ever did in that situation was write shit down. And I wrote down, what are you good at? What you're talented at, and what do you enjoy doing? And it was all gearing towards the gym and personal training. So I've been training since the age of 13. Never looked at it as a hobby. So I never looked at it as a career, more of a hobby. And suddenly it was just staring at me in the face. And it was that there and then that I did my personal trainer certification, didn't have any money, but whacked 16 grand on a credit card, borrowed my dad's bike, and then started cycling up to this little studio to work, and became a personal trainer. And I excelled at that. And I think one of the main reasons being is that I never saw another personal trainer train anybody else. However, I knew what was involved in getting a body transformation. And it wasn't just the 1 hour that you were with a client, it was the other 23 as well. It was the food, it was the nutrition, it was the rest. And because I'd focused on that other 23 and the others had focused on that 1 hour, I was getting ridiculous results with those people. And, within 3 years became one of the most well-known, personal trainers in the UK. And to cut a very long story short, if you ask like the why behind what it is that I do, I think when you have a passion and an enjoyment for something that brings value to other people's lives, you'll get immense amount of success with anything that you do.
Absolutely, I couldn't agree more. I mean, if you take Tony Robbins' the 6 needs, the 4 human needs and the 2 spiritual needs, the 2 spiritual needs are growth and contribution. So if you're growing yourself and you're doing that in a way that contributes to others, but you're growing in a way, doing the things that you love doing. And what's interesting is, more often than not, the things that people love doing is often the things that they're good at as well, right? Because they're willing to commit more time to it and get better and improve. So, so that kind of is what I've taken from that, is you just decided, actually, I'm going to do the things that I love. I think the 3 things that you said, what am I good at? What do I enjoy? And I forget the third one, but essentially that's what you did. And no wonder now, sort of years on, you're sort of renowned globally for being a true expert in the field. The one thing I did want to touch on quickly, because you said you were at that point when you were sort of at college, it was either I go to the army or I go to prison. What were you like at school?
A little, are we allowed to swear on this show?
Yeah, you're good. You're good.
A little shitbag, if I'm being honest. I just had so much built up energy that I didn't know what to do with it. And one of the actual fortunate things that my teachers did was they opened up the gym at lunchtimes and let all the naughty kids go there to let off some steam. And that's how I got a passion for training and a passion for the gym, because I was kind of coasted in by the teachers to, go and let some energy off in that gym at lunchtimes. And it helped me so much by channeling that effort and energy into something other than getting into trouble. So I'm kind of fortunate with regards to that, because, I channeled some of that boredom, I would say, and not knowing what it was that I wanted to do into something more productive.
Yeah, and I asked that because I was aware of that. And I think that there's a huge lesson here for a lot of people, particularly people that have got children that are the disruptive ones and that are the naughty kids, is that consider the possibility that's not their identity. And in fact, it's just they need to be doing something that stimulates them. And for you, that was exercise and more physical activities that you've then used to turn into a career and become incredibly successful at it.
Yeah, and the thing is, my son Arch is 2 now, and I can see so much of that built up energy and naughtiness because he's just into everything and curious about everything. So I'm excited for him and kind of scared at the same time.
Yeah. All good. So I want to talk about body transformations, because like you say, you got into personal training and body transformations, and I've got to be credit due that anybody that takes on body transformations, because it is serious commitment. But I think more so than the commitment of the exercise, which, like you say, however often you're in the gym and you're on the stepper or whatever it is you're doing to try and cut a little bit, it's the psychological impact of not doing the thing, not having the food that you want. And we're not talking going pizzas and chips here, but even having like normal, for having the shepherd's pie or the roast dinner that for most people would be part of a balanced diet that you're restricting yourself on. So what are some of the lessons that you personally have, the life lessons, if you like, that you took from doing the body transformations?
So I think the first one that I would say is to let people know that transformation starts from the neck up. A lot of people focus on their body without focusing on their mind. So as soon as they get this right, the body follows. So the first thing that I want to really know is, you know, when we break things down into problems and solutions, people want a solution, and it's usually a weight loss solution. So someone come to me and say, Jay, I want to lose 20 pounds. For me, that is the solution. But we haven't identified what the problem is. The problem is really, well, why are you 20 pounds overweight in the first place? Or why do you feel that losing 20 pounds is going to change something in you? Because when you ask enough whys and you have what's known as root cause analysis in your own life, what you actually find is that you haven't really dug deep enough to figure out why you want to lose the weight. And, you know, a random example of this can be a woman wanting to lose 20 pounds because she's gained that 20 pounds, but she's gained that 20 pounds because she just got out of an abusive relationship and she has, you know, got comfort in eating, and her self-confidence has been affected. Her self-worth has been affected. And we need to address these problems first before we go into losing the 20 pounds, because the only thing that's going to happen is you're probably going to lose that 20 pounds in very unsustainable, miserable ways, but you're still going to have the same issues. 20 pounds lighter is not going to make you feel more self-esteem, more self-confidence. It might do. And it only might do if it does change things and you've done it with sustainable means. But once you address those problems and you say to yourself, look, I am worthy of this, you know, I do deserve this, and, you know, I'm doing this for me, not for anybody else, then it becomes a lot easier to do. The second thing when it comes to transformation is what you said, you know, people having to stop the roast dinners, people having to, you know, not have the shepherd's pie. And what I say to that is danger's in the dosage. There is no good or bad. Everything's in moderation. If you want a roast dinner, have the roast dinner. If you want a shepherd's pie, have a shepherd's pie. The more knowledge that you have about what it is that's going in your body, the more logical decisions you can make. Because sometimes it comes down to trade-offs. The way I like to explain nutrition is very much like top trump cards. You know, you've got the top trump of broccoli and you've got the top trump of, I don't know, pizza. And if we're comparing the values of it, one of them is going to dominate. When we look at the taste, you know, it's going to be 100 pizza and it's probably going to be about 20 broccoli. So pizza is going to win every single day. But when we look at satiety, when we look at calories, we look at nutrients, we look at things that are good for you, we look at everything else, there are certain cards you can play or certain points you can pick that absolutely destroy the other one. And sometimes it's not one or the other. It's picking the right thing for the right time. Because I say to people, look, a McDonald's muffin's 550 calories. It tastes awesome. But so's a whole plate of chicken, rice, and green beans. And there is going to be a situation where you're going to want the muffin, and that's absolutely fine. But then there's going to be logical situations where that just doesn't make sense. You know, 500 calories to somebody on a 1700 calorie diet is about a third of their calories. And you're just going to make the rest of your day a lot more difficult. And actually the logical choice is the chicken, you know, plate of healthy food. But at the same time, we also need to understand is that we're not logical creatures, we're emotional creatures, and we back it up with logic. So 1 + 1 = 3 in certain situations. So this comes back to the mindset. It's coming down to understanding that danger's in the doses. There's more than one way of skinning a cat. And fat loss is like learning another language. You're not going to learn Japanese in 2 weeks' time. You're going to have to take a long time to understand, make lots of mistakes, and become a little bit more fluent.
So on that note then, so as we know, there's the logical decision. We know in instances, if one of your goals is to lose weight, for example, we know that ultimately you've got to have a calorie deficit. And I know it's one of the things that you're quite big on, you know, is that bottom line is it's a calorie deficit. That's it. It doesn't matter all these fancy foods and supplements and all the rest of it. It comes down to calorie deficit. Eat less or move more, or a combination of the both. So we understand that you've got the logical decision, but what are some of the tips, I suppose, that you would, for people that right now that are on a bit of a health transformation journey, whether that's to gain weight, lose weight, have more energy, whatever it is, what are your tips for them to overcome the emotional urge to splurge?
I think playing a longer game is the most important thing. I have this thing called 1 chapter a day. And the analogy that I put is this. A lot of people will start the 1st of January going, right, I want to read more books. And they'll go and buy 15 of the top books that are going to change their life. They'll probably get through 2 of them in Jan. They'll probably get through 1 of them in Feb. And by March, they've probably forgotten about it. So they get to the end of the year having read 3 books. But rather than that way, what they should do is go and buy 1 book and commit to reading 1 chapter every single day. That'll take about 10, 15 minutes, and commit to doing that every day. Small thing. If you commit to 1 chapter of a self-development book, average self-development book being 11 to 12 chapters, you'll get 30 to 35 books read in a year. And this approach is the same with your weight loss. So many people will get to January the 1st going, I need to lose 20 pounds. When in actual fact, what they should be focusing on is, I need to lose a pound every 2 weeks. And then just focusing on that one consistent goal is a lot easier than focusing and, looking at the overall outcome-based goal. And I think a lot of things that you do in your life, you need to chunk them down and you need to take things 1 chapter at a time. Don't rush success. I always say to people, if I waved a magic wand and gave you the body of your dreams, it wouldn't last very long for 2 reasons. 1, you don't know how you got it. And 2, you don't know how to maintain it. You need to make the fuck ups and failures. You need to make the mistakes in order to figure out what the right things to do. And most importantly, what the wrong things to do are too.
Absolutely. I can never remember the name of the person that has the quote, but it's something along the lines of success, and of course success is subjective, is a lot of small things done well day after day. And
it's probably James. I think James Clear talks very much about it in his book Atomic Habits. It's a phenomenal book.
Yeah, it really is. So on that note then, because one of the things that you speak about habits, and I highly recommend people go and listen to or buy your books and read them, but obviously you're big on habits. And one of the things that you talk about that a lot of people don't when it comes to habit creation actually is lots of people talk about create a new habit, and there's the 21 days, the 30 days, the 66 days, whatever. I mean, my personal opinion, I don't know about you, is that the days are irrelevant. There's other factors that come into it, like how much you actually want it and the intensity and whatnot. There's certain people that, I don't know, if their partner has a heart attack from smoking, then they're willing to make that decision in that moment and they never smoke again. They don't have to wait 30 days for it, whatever. But one of the things that you talk about is it's all well and good creating new habits, but it's also how you can make the habits that you don't want hard. So for people that aren't familiar with that, can you just share a little bit about that?
Yeah, I mean, obviously James Clear talks about this in his book, make the good habits easy to do and the bad habits difficult to do. But if you have a bad habit of eating crap late at night, you just don't have it in the house. It's very hard to do a bad habit of eating crap when it's not in the house, out of sight, out of mind. When it comes to building up the habit of getting up and going to the gym in the morning, it becomes very difficult, especially during the November time when, it's dark, it's cold, and it's the last thing that you want to do. Well, we can't really change the darkness. We can change the cold. What we can do is, if we have to get up at 6, put the heating on for 4. It's a lot easier to get out of when it's a warm house. Once again, it's a strategy. The next thing that becomes easier when you procrastinate in bed is if you've got everything to your right-hand side, all your gym kit, all packed, all your clothes laid out, ready to go, it becomes a lot easier to do. And the final thing is to really have a reason as to why you're doing it. Because if the reason is not good enough, you won't do it. And I'm always excited to get up in the morning. I love getting up early. One of the main reasons being is I've got 2 young kids. And if I don't get up early, then I don't get anything done in the morning. But the second thing is I'm so productive and creative in the morning. So I get some of the best things done as soon as I wake up. So I have a kind of a long morning routine, which really sets me up for the day.
What are some of your components of your morning routine?
So it works out a couple of hours, and I have a like plan B and plan C as well. So if I can't get it all in, I can narrow it down to about 20 minutes. But the first thing I do is I get up, water, stretch. I use an app called ROMWOD, which is around 25 minutes. I'll just press play on that app, do whatever it tells me to do. That keeps it nice and simple. Then have a coffee, go for a walk. I normally get about 6,500 steps in on a walk. During that walk, I live about 20 minutes from the seafront and jump in the sea every single day. I have done for the last 2 years, and then carry on my walk, and then get back, breakfast, and then get set up ready to head off to the studio for work.
Sounds good. What the sea thing, because I'm very into lots of things that help me operate at my best. One of them that I personally do most days is having a cold shower. And what is it that the having that dip every day, and I know you're very like Christmas Day, every day you're doing it. What is it that you get from doing that?
I always talk about that. There is so much wisdom from the sea. And I could write an entire book on wisdom from the sea that I've learned over 2 years of sea dipping. I was
going to say, that's a book title, isn't it, right there?
Yeah, definitely. The first one is to understand that of the 7 days a week that I go in, probably 1 or 2 of those days I actually want to do it. When it comes to November, December, January, of those 7 days, none of the days I want to do it. And something that I learned very much in the army, and something I learned about cold water, cold therapy, sea dips a lot, is understanding that you're never going to be motivated to do it, ever. You need to be disciplined to do it. And this is really something that I said about understanding what discipline really is versus motivation. Because if you are relying on motivation to do things, you won't get much done. Because motivation is feeling good and then doing stuff. Discipline, however, is not feeling good about doing it and doing it anyway, and then feeling great after you've done it. And if you can adapt your body and your mind to not be motivated to do things and get the benefit beforehand, and be disciplined to do things in the knowledge that you're going to feel great after you've done it, you'll change the game with everything that you do.
100%. I love that comment of discipline is not wanting to do it, doing it anyway, and feeling good after, because that is the case, isn't it? Whenever we do something we don't do, whether it's that workout, that piece of work, going and seeing that family member, whatever it is, when you really don't want to, that's when you feel so good afterwards. So I love that. Now, talking of doing things that are challenging, to say the least, and things that you don't really want to do, you've had your fair share of challenges. I mean, I years ago, I used to do what I call 90-day challenges, and I put myself up to do something and learn something new in a short period of time, like learning to ride a unicycle and handstand walks and all this stupid stuff that I used to share on social media for other people's entertainment. But again, it was the discipline of doing it and learning, having a bit of fun at the same time. One of the things that I did as one of my challenges was summiting Mont Blanc. Now, you've also climbed a mountain, but in a very different way.
Yeah, it was actually box jumping Mount Everest. It was back in 2019, which is kind of crazy when you think about it, because it's a lot of box jumps.
So for people that aren't familiar with box jumps, you had a 24-inch box?
Yeah, so 24-inch box, and that's equivalent to a foot. I think it's a foot, 24 or 2 foot. Sorry, 2 foot. Mount Everest is 29,030 feet. So what I needed to do to set a new Guinness World Record, because no one had been stupid enough to set it, was to do 14,000, I think it's, 14,515 box jumps or something like that in 24 hours, which works out around 600 now. It works out about 15 box jumps a minute every minute for 24 hours straight.
And that's what you did, didn't you? If I remember correctly,
Yeah.
You kept the discipline of that rather than just, oh, let's see how we get on. It was, I mean, what's how many minutes in an hour? Minutes an hour. I know that one. 60, but whatever that works out to be, 24 hours. It was the discipline. I mean, let me get the calculator out and work it out. I probably could. So for you, it was the discipline of 1,440 minutes of discipline of doing 15. And there must have been times when your legs were in bits.
Yeah, I mean, here's the thing. I think one of the things, this was my third endurance event, and one of the things which I learned from the first one, and great recommendation of a book is Can't Hurt Me by David Goggins, and he has this thing called the 40% rule. And what he talks about is when you feel like you can't do anything more, as in you are completely exhausted, you can't do anything more, understand that you're only at 40%. And the body and the mind go through these phases when you're doing something like that for 24 hours. You go through periods of being broken physically. But as long as you're not broken mentally, and you can, get over and understand that this is just a phase that you can work through, then you can get through the other side. Hour 9 of the box jump, I mean, my strategy for the box jump was to do, I did 13 box jumps a minute for 45 minutes. And then 15 box jumps a minute for 10 minutes, and then took a 5-minute rest. So I could get that 5 minutes to change my socks, stretch, mobilize, sort out any injuries, and then straight in for the next hour. An hour 9, I pulled my calf, my quad was spasming, and I have I've been working up a strategy that I could jump 15 box jumps in around 15 seconds. So what I'd built up is my ability and my body to adapt to a work rate, rest rate of being able to do intense exercise for 15 seconds, and then develop my body to recover very quickly in 45 seconds. That took about 6 months to build up. Actually, it took over a year and a half of doing it, because I started training for the box jump in 2018, had too many things to commit to business-wise, and had to postpone it a year. So I'd spent 2 months building up in 2018 for it. Though one of the issues that we had was because my quad was spasming and my calf just was no-go. I thought I just pulled my calf. I'd have to jump up, step back down. It would take me about 1.5 to 2 seconds per box jump. So instead of doing 15 seconds, 15 box jumps, 1 box jump a second, it was actually taking me 35 seconds to 40 seconds to do my set, which only gave me 20 seconds to recover before the next round. And when you're in excruciating pain, you've only got 20 seconds before you got to do another 15. Your heart rate goes up, panic goes up, and I'm only 9 hours in. I've got another 18 hours to go. So a lot of things go on in your head, like, oh my God, this is going to be the worst thing ever. You're not going to be able to do this. You've got so many people relying on you. You're raising money for charity. There's all these people watching. You've got 1,000 people on a live stream, and you've just got to shut the fuck up. Listen to yourself and go, we haven't got 18 hours left. We've got 1 hour. We've got to do this for the next 45 rounds, get through it. And we've got 5 minutes then to sort your shit out, take a deep breath, and get ready for the next hour. And then we're going to focus on the next hour and see how we go. So it was no longer a battle for the next 18 hours. It was just a battle for the next 45 rounds. So in my head, I'm like, 44, come on, 43, let's go. Come on,
Yeah.
42. And then I got there. I luckily had a physio there, and my calf was locked up, but it was just tight. It wasn't pulled. So I managed to loosen that up within the 5 minutes. I had one of those massage guns on my quads, took some sodium on, some electrolytes, and stopped spasming in the quad within that 5 minutes. And then I was back again in hour 10. And by the time I got to hour 12, I was like, my body was just like, oh, well, that was weird. And then it was just like, oh. And then as 13, 14 came on, I was like, I've got this.
You got it. I love that. I absolutely love that. I come across a guy called Eric Potterat. I don't know if you've come across Eric Potterat, but Eric Potterat is a psychologist for Navy SEALs. And what he did was he identified that those that get through Hell Week. So for people that aren't familiar with Navy SEALs, it's one of the military elite forces. As someone that's in the army, I'm sure you'll agree. And he identified there was 4 main things that those that got through Hell Week did versus those that didn't. And one of those 4 was what he called closed focus goal setting. So knowing you've got the full mission ahead, that might be a few days or whatever it is, but you focus on the very next thing in front of you, like get to the helicopter or get down the helicopter or get into that building or whatever it is, which is essentially what you've said that you've done there. You've blocked out everything else. You put the blinkers on and you've gone, it's this goal. I'm getting to this, this position. I actually remember years ago when I was about 13 years old, a good friend of mine, Joe, was a really good long distance runner. And all of the other long distance runners were really tall, really lanky, and could just run for days. Now, I'm not a tall guy. I'm 5'8" in heels. And one of the things that he did, because he was a really good, I said, what do you do? What's your secret? And he said, when I run, I just run to the next lamppost. That's it. I run to the next lamppost and then the next one and then the next one. And you've done exactly the same and managed to conquer Mount Everest on box jumps with that approach.
Yeah, and I love that as well. I think one of the things which I took from that is, of course, yeah, sectioning things out. But there's I think it's General McCreevy did these next Navy SEALs commander, and what he was talking about is, firstly, Navy SEALs go through what's called their evolution. So they compartmentalize things into the next evolution. So Hell Week is broken down into 6 evolutions. Once you get past 1, you got 5 more, 4 more, 3 more, 2 more, 1 more, done. So very much, yeah, breaking that down. The next thing he said is that, each Navy SEAL, when they've had enough, they can just ring a bell and they finish. And his quote is, if the Navy SEALs that get through, what you have to understand is in their head, there isn't a bell. That's not an option. And actually, when I was doing my backwards run endurance event, I had a bell at the start line and a sign next to it saying, never ring the bell. And every time I ran past it, I could see a bell, and it just said above, just this little sign above it, never ring the bell. And that was the thing that got me through a previous event, because that bell didn't exist in my head, and it never has.
So let's just talk about this, because this wasn't any old endurance event, was it?
No, this was running backwards for 24 hours.
And you ran how many kilometers?
109 it was in the end.
So to put that into context for people, that's like 3 marathons?
Yeah, I think so. I think what's a marathon? I think it's about 40. Is it about 40 kilometers? Is it? I think it's 40 kilometers. So just under 3 marathons.
So just under 3 marathons in one day, running backwards.
Yeah, that's right. That sounds bonkers when you think about it now.
And this was like another charity thing, but you did it. I mean, what? And there's another challenge, a sled challenge that you've done as well. What's what your third endurance?
Yeah, so the first one was pushing a 140 kilo sled for 24 hours. The second one that I did, that was 2016. 2017 was running backwards for 24 hours, and 2019 was the box jump.
Right. What is the thing? I suppose the why, because you can go, yeah, but I'm doing it for charity, but what is it that makes you want to do these extreme, unique challenges?
I'll tell you an interesting. I've always wondered this. And, I come from a competitor background, and a lot of people think that being a good competitor is the ability to diet and train effectively to look good on stage, which it's not. The people that win the game are people who can suffer the most. And people get into this fight or flight mode when it comes to suffering, where they're going to either give up or get, I don't know, just they get a kick out of it, get a weird kick out of it. And I get in this period of exhaustion with some things, and I absolutely fucking love it. It's just such a weird feeling because everyone around me has this look as they're going to give up. And I have this feeling of this is, like this feeling right now is addictive. And it's just such a strange thing, because when I'm in when I was competing, when I was in the depths of getting really lean and suffering for weeks on end, in some kind of way, it's just incredible, because it's the way that I kind of explain it is you've got Maslow's hierarchy of needs. And as you go up there, there's self-actualization and everything else. And, when you're down the bottom, it's food, warmth, and shelter. And when you are in a period of complete suffering, when you're a period of pain and agony, it doesn't matter how much money you've got, it doesn't matter how successful you are, it doesn't matter who you've got around you supporting you, it's you versus you. The only person that you've got is the narrative that's in your head. And there's a certain incredible confidence that comes with the ability to control that over time. Because if you can control that inner thought, if you can tell yourself and give yourself the right self-talk, you build a level of confidence in yourself, which enables you to go and push yourself in anything that you want in life, because you don't have that self-doubt. You don't question yourself, am I good enough? Because deep down, when shit hits the fan, you'll be fine. When everyone around you is suffering and things are crumbling, this ain't your first rodeo. You're ready for this shit. And I love that. I went through a really difficult year, 2019. I knew it was going to be a very difficult year, splitting from business partners. My son was due to be born at the same time and building a new business from scratch. And I got up on January the 1st, knowing that it was going to be the most difficult year. And without any training, I ran a marathon on January the 1st. And people are like, what are you doing? I'm like, I don't know. And I got up at 4 a.m. on January 2nd, ran another marathon. And my feet are just absolutely destroyed by now. And then I got up day 3, ran 16.8 miles and Forrest Gumped it, where I didn't grow the beard or anything. I just stopped and said, I'm done now. Yeah. And what that enabled me to do is put myself in a certain mindset and a level of pain to say to myself, you've just ran 2.5 marathons back to back with no training. If you can do this, anything that the year throws at you, you'll be fine. And I think that's the thing with regards to not competing anymore, but doing these things. It's a win-win for me. I get to scratch that itch and get myself into this kind of very weird kind of meditation state. And at the same time, raise tens of thousands of pounds for good causes. So in my eyes, it's a massive win-win.
I love that. A couple of episodes ago, I had Matt Gallant on. I don't know if you know Matt. He's the CEO of BioOptimizers, big nutritional company focused on sort of optimal health in America. And he has done a huge amount of research on this and used to train in Navy SEALs and whatnot. And what he's realized, because he's really into the neurochemistry of the body, is it's actually the belief that you have. I mean, you said it's the narrative, right? When you can control that narrative, but it's the narrative that actually has an impact on the body that enables you to keep going. So for example, one of the things, I'm sure you have this mantra, is no pain, no gain. right? So a lot of these Navy SEALs, are using it as the examples, that's what you did the research on. They have this belief that when I'm in pain, I'm gaining, I'm growing, I'm developing, which what that actually does is it releases dopamine that then makes them feel good. So then actually the harder they push themselves, where most normal people would be like, you're crazy, what the hell are you doing? They're actually getting their fix in the same way that other people do when they have their chocolate, or they go and watch their favorite film, or they, whatever else it is that they're I don't know, getting their social media notifications, whatever it is that's giving them that dopamine hit, which is fascinating when you think of it, because then it does just come back to, as you just said, the story you tell yourself will dictate how far you can push yourself.
Do you know who makes it, from what I've seen, who makes the best endurance athletes? Ex-drug addicts. And it's very fascinating when you see a lot of these incredible endurance athletes that have a real dark past, that they found whatever they were getting from quick fixes of drugs, that they now have found getting those quick fixes from endurance. And it's you know, I can't really comment from the drug addict side, but I can definitely understand a certain element from what you just said there, with that kind of neurochemistry of getting some kind of high or fix from pushing your own body into that kind of place where most people find themselves very uncomfortable.
Yeah, I can absolutely believe it. In terms of talking on endurance events, 2016, 2017, 2019, we're about to come into 2022. What's next?
Yeah, a lot of people ask me what next, and I say never say never. And I will be doing some more things. But one of the things that I find is that I'm building my business at the moment, which involves me coaching hundreds of fitness professionals with regards to their businesses. And in order for me to do these crazy things, I need to become a full-time athlete. And that means that I need to take my foot off the gas from the mentorship and business side and focus on my own selfish needs. And I need to build my business in a place that doesn't need my brain, if that makes sense. I need to kind of delegate and systemize a lot of stuff for me to be able to commit the time that's needed to do these things. So I reckon that's going to be not next year, but the year after, because that is very much my focus. So I'm not going to say stay tuned for 2022, but most certainly will be looking at things to do in 2023. And it's always difficult, because it's not as if you need to top the last thing, but the last thing was a brand new Guinness World Record box jump in Mount Everest. So I've set the bar quite high now. So I've got to think about what it is and where I want to go with the next one.
I mean, you say you've set it quite high. You've only set it to the highest point on the planet. I mean, that's the bar that you've set. So I mean, we've got to be talking extraterrestrial now in terms of going from there. But you've obviously mentioned, we've alluded to it already, that you are one of the best fitness business trainers. I mean, you're great at creating body transformations for people, but also for business owners. So people that own fitness businesses, gyms, personal training businesses, whatever. You are one of the world leading authorities at helping people to grow and expand their businesses. But for people, and I know there'll be many that have chosen to listen to this episode or watch this episode on YouTube because of the reason of you are who you are, what are some key tips that we can share with people when it comes to starting to grow a successful fitness business?
I think it's understanding your relationship with confidence and competence. And it's something that I was listening to yesterday, because if you have low confidence and low competence, it's a self issue. A lot of people don't get out of that because they don't believe they're good enough to build their own business. They don't believe they're good enough to earn the money that they deserve for their talents and skills. So you need to develop yourself first. And a lot of that is fixing the leaks. And once you fix those, you know, confidence improves, but your competence needs to improve too. So you need to then look at building your skills, becoming more skillful, and beating on a craft a lot better. And as soon as your confidence improves and competence then improves, that's when you can focus on real growth. But unfortunately, people try to run before they can walk. It's getting all your systems in place, and it's getting what's going on up in your head right too. And imposter syndrome is massive for a lot of entrepreneurs, and building up that self-esteem, self-belief and self-confidence is a big part of the journey for growing a successful business.
And for the people that are, I mean, I hear what you're saying about confidence and competence. So is it a case of, right, well, I just don't physically have the knowledge of how to help this person? Or is it that I've done all the courses, I have the knowledge, but I don't believe that I can? For the people that do have and are right now that are struggling with imposter syndrome, what's your advice to them of how they overcome that?
I think one of the things to understand with imposter syndrome, as we said, is usually that with imposter syndrome, competence outweighs confidence. And there's another great book, and I'm trying to remember. It's right there. Think Again by Adam Grant. And he has this thing called the opposite of imposter syndrome is armchair quarterback. And that is somebody whose confidence outweighs their competence. And there's a lot of people on social media like that. There's a lot of people helping people naively like that. And what you have to understand is that, people who have imposter syndrome tend to work a lot harder, charge a lot less, and actually give people far too much value than they need when it comes to getting results. So a lot of the time when people are suffering from that, it's saying to them, you're fucking brilliant at what it is that you do. You just need to value yourself more. And that means spending less time doing things, upping your prices, and actually just working on your self-talk and belief. And don't look at it as a bad thing. Look at it as something that is a good thing, because the alternative is to lack the competence and have too much confidence in what you're doing. And then you go down to this Dunning-Kruger effect of then having to go down the chart when it comes to experience and then go back up again, which a lot of people do. They realize that they don't know anything, and they naively got to where they are today. And then that's when they suffer that imposter syndrome.
Love that. So that's a really great tip for people that are struggling with the psychology element of it. And what about something from a really more practical point of view in terms of gaining new clients? Because the thing that most people say is, well, if only I had 5 more of the 5 clients I've got, or whatever the number is, they'll do that. What's a really practical thing that people could be doing more of or differently to gain more clients?
So something that I always said is that if you want to stand out from the crowd, do things that the crowd are not willing to do. And I'll tell you those 3 things: talking on video, going live on social media, and public speaking. You get good at those 3 things, you'll stand out from the crowd, because they are 3 of the most scariest things in any business to do. So in order to get better, you need to expose yourself more. There's a new study coming out, which Dr. Andrew Huberman, I believe, is doing a live this week on about exposure to cold. A lot of people who feel the cold during the winter periods, their normal reaction is to wrap up warm, put the heating on. But it doesn't solve the problem. It's a temporary fix. In order to improve your adaptation to the cold, you need to expose yourself to cold more. The studies that have just come out is 11 minutes a week can increase your brown adipose tissue, which makes you feel a lot warmer. So what we understand is that in order to fix a problem, we don't need to avoid it or find a quick fix. We need to expose ourselves more. The only way you can get better at talking on video is to do more videos. The only way you can get better at going live on social media is to go live on social media. And the only way that you can get better at public speaking is to do more public speaking. So expose yourself to more of those things. And then the final thing that I say with any business or any person is conversations equals conversions. the only reason that you haven't got clients is you're not talking to enough strangers. And the only reason that you're not talking to enough strangers is because you lack the confidence to go up and talk to strangers.
Yeah. Love that, and couldn't agree more in so many ways, and particularly the thing you said about the exposure. You know, you said before, it's the dosage that will kill you, but it's also that, like take a vaccine, quite topical at the moment. They're giving you little amounts, sort of small dosages of the thing, and in any instance, which builds your immunity, and that's exactly what you've just said in that respect, as well. In terms of people being able to, one other question. You said about confidence and competence. I know that you're an avid learner. I mean, you've only got to look behind you at the books, and you learn consistently about not only your own industry, but lots of different disciplines and modalities to enable you to become a better version of yourself and continue that growth path, which I think is highly important. You know, if you don't grow, you die. Your top 3 books of all time, what would they be?
Psycho-Cybernetics by Dr. Maxwell Maltz. I'm going to give a left field one for this, and it's called The Shrink and the Sage. It's having a conversation on different things on life with a psychologist and a philosopher. And the final one is going to be another kind of out there book called The Go-Giver.
Go-Giver. Okay. So Psycho-Cybernetics, I love it. It's in my top. I used to have a top 10, and then I couldn't do it anymore, so it's become a top 15. Now I've got a top 21. And Psycho-Cybernetics is in my top 21, but the other 2 I've not heard of. So I'm definitely going to go and check those out. And
the Go-Giver, that will be up there, I'll tell you, in that top list for you. And Shrink and the Sage, just brace yourself to read a couple of chapters, because you'll read a couple and then it blows your mind, and then you've got to take a day to get back to the next chapter.
Sounds good. I'll check it out. Well, Jamie, look, it's been an absolute pleasure having you on the show, and I've really, really enjoyed the conversation. For people that have come across you for the first time from being on the show, and I really like this guy. I want to find out what he's up to. I want to be seeing the challenges in 2023 and watching you do your daily C dips. Where can people connect with you? Where can people find out more about you?
The best place is Instagram at J Alderton, JAYALDERTON. And if you are joining my Instagram from there, feel free to message me and let me know which parts of this podcast resonated with you.
Wonderful. Well, guys, absolutely go and do that. There's been so much wisdom that's been shared here. I hope you really enjoyed it. I certainly have. And make sure you put these new pieces of knowledge into action so you too can benefit from them. Jamie, it's been an absolute pleasure. For everyone that's been listening, until next time, make it happen.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the Make It Happen with Will Polston podcast. Make sure you join Will's free Facebook group, the Make It Happen community. Please support the show by subscribing on iTunes, Spotify, Stitcher, SoundCloud, or Google Play. Share this episode with at least one friend you think would benefit from it, and give Will a 5-star review wherever you download your podcasts. Until next time, make it happen.